So this is a strong opinion from Blair Forest. Amazon
Yeah.
resellers versus direct selling. Which strategy is right for your brand? Blair Forest, founder of AMZ Prep, dives into the ongoing debate of whether brands should sell directly on Amazon or partner with resellers. Direct selling offers higher margins, 15 to 25%, and full control, but requires expertise and capital. While resellers provide immediate Amazon expertise and working capital, but may sacrifice some control and margins. Success stories exist on both sides, with the best strategy depending on factors like cash position, team expertise, growth goals, and distribution strategy. Forrest highlights that no one size fits all answer exists, and brands must evaluate their unique needs to determine the optimal path forward.
So, Todd, I feel like this one is right up your and my alleys, right? And I've certainly got an opinion on this one. So I think it comes down to exactly what he says in the post. If it comes down to expertise and capital, if the brand has the expertise to win on Amazon and they have the capital to invest, then they should sell themselves. If they have one or neither of those two things, then they should partner with an authorized reseller. And I think it pretty much comes down to that. I think a lot of brands, they don't have the expertise, but maybe they do have the capital. They go try and win on Amazon and they just get absolutely destroyed because they don't have control over their supply chain. Their listings haven't been updated in 2 or 3 years. They think they can just send inventory into FBA and print sales and everybody goes home happy, but that's just not how it works. So yeah, that's kind of my take on the situation. Every brand is different. It's not one size fits all, just like Blair said.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think it should say brand partnerships versus direct, because resellers can be anything from people just flipping products, which are not
It also just doesn't
necessarily going to
sound
have any benefit.
professional. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So brand
That's how I
partnership
read it.
versus direct is kind of the route that brands should be looking at. Either,
Yeah.
like you said, partnering with someone like myself, Danon, Corey, who have a lot of expertise on Amazon, a decade worth of experience that you can leverage to sell your products, versus selling direct on Amazon yourself. And then you're either going to have to learn all that knowledge or hire and pay someone probably 75 to 100,000 or more that has that knowledge, or build out a team to be able to do it, or outsource it to someone like Robin on their as a consultant agency, and do it yourself. So those are kind of the different options. I guess, throwing in there using an agency would essentially be like brand direct, but hiring an outside company to do the work for you.
Yep.
And I would say that I've done all three. And I know he's mentioning two, but I'm going to add a third one. So if a brand really wants control, they're focused on driving growth, they have resources allocated. Even with the full service agency, you're going to have inventory and process changes. There's going to be conversations about ads and creative. So if they have the time and resources to enter in that, and they're looking to actively grow Amazon, I think having them sell directly has the highest margin. But there are times when, a brand will come to us for an audit and we'll say, at the end of the day, with where you're at, we think you should go with a reseller. And a structured reseller where there's agreements, where maybe there's some brand defense ads running, those kinds of things. So a well-structured brand partnership can be really great for brands that don't necessarily have the resources, the time. Maybe they're focused on other channels for growth, or they've got other issues, or they need the capital up front. They can't have that delayed capital. The third one would be brands who want to actively grow, but they don't have enough ad spend to be able to grow all of the products in their product mix. So for companies that have really wide product mix, sometimes what we'll recommend is, we're going to focus on these SKUs. We're going to give resellers notice, have them move, create Amazon only SKUs, whatever we're going to do. And we're going to focus on driving these sales and restricting sales on these particular products in a way that's fair, not pulling the rug out from under people. But we're going to focus on growing these sales, and we're going to allow resellers to continue to do what they do best on some of these other SKUs, so we can focus on, because advertising on Amazon is like fighting with a toddler. pick your battles, but win at all costs. So if you don't have enough bandwidth to fight all of those battles, then sometimes partnering with like reseller partnerships can be a great piece that goes with. And we have some brands that have said, this reseller has been with us. They believed in us when we were young and as a brand, and we want to honor that tradition. I love working with brands like that.
Yeah.
And so we'll work around those resellers to make sure that they're taken care of as we continue to find ways to grow the brand on Amazon.
Yeah. And that's such a good point. Like, it's not all or nothing, right? You don't have to say, okay, we're taking our entire Amazon channel in-house, we're putting a team on it, we're putting resources to it, yada, yada, yada. You could say, okay, well, we've got a couple of really strong resellers that a lot of times they've been working with for a number of years. Hey, let's keep them in the fold because they do add value, assuming they are, and find a way to have more of a hybrid approach, right? Like we said, it's not all or nothing. And I think that's a great way to look at it. Again, obviously, depending on the brand, depending on their goals, depending on their situation.
My brand right now, my wife and I have been selling their products on Amazon for a decade. And is that right? Yeah, this year's a decade. Yeah. And, this is a handshake deal that I made with the CEO a decade ago. I flew out to California, met him. He's like, yeah, cool. Let's do this handshake. Cool. See you later. And it can work. It really can work. And I think that, it costs them nothing. And they have tried. They've told us, hey, we're going to try and do this ourselves. We're like, yeah, cool. Go for it. Right. And they came back to us like, yeah, never mind. You can just have our whole catalog.
A lot of times that's how it works.
Yeah, totally. And
sure.
and that just reaffirms your knowledge, experience, and capabilities to help a brand out.
We have several resellers that refer brands to us.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea is not that they would sell direct. It's that the brand pays us to update the listings and run sponsored brands and sponsored display ads, which run regardless of who's having the buy box, to help their resellers grow all together, right? So there are times when that really works well too, where because especially with compliance issues, you as a reseller might need to get listing changed to update to a new compliance. If you have somebody on that is working on behalf of the brand, they can help work with Amazon to get those things changed for them. It can keep important SKUs online.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's important too that, if you're going to be a brand and work with a reseller or have a brand partnership, and your goal is to grow your brand on Amazon, we can do a lot of good just by optimizing the listings and stuff like that. But if you really want to make it go, I always try to get some type of advertising share where the brand is putting in a certain amount of ad dollars, and then I'll match those ad dollars.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it's hard as a reseller, right? Because the margins are smaller.
Yep.
So we can't afford as much ad spend for the products. So that's where the brand can pitch in, however much a month, whatever that looks like, $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 or whatever.
Yep.
And really help boost the products. And of course, as the reseller, a lot of times, most of us are experienced with running PPC ads and doing that. Or I know, Robin, you actually help resellers as they're running their ads, or being their PPC person, I should say. So that's something to think about too with the brand, that if you go direct, you're going to have to pay for ads. You're going to probably want to pay for ads if you're using a reseller as well. You may have to pay a little bit less because the reseller might kick some of that in as well. But you do get access to all the experience of the reseller that they've had with all their listings, optimization, and everything else.
Yep. I don't even run ads. I don't have the margin to run ads, but I haven't run ads in forever. So.
Yeah, and that might be a place, Danon, where you go back to the brand and ask them if they would be interested in doing an ad share or something like that.
Absolutely. It's a brilliant idea. It's been a topic of conversation several times, but they've never wanted to pull the trigger on it. But who knows? Like maybe they'll want to do it this time, But
and there can be
on
transparency concerns. I did have a brand that I audited, and they said that their reseller was selling was doing ads. When we asked them to provide the data, they said that they couldn't provide the data because Amazon didn't provide the data. And I was like,
It's like, wait a second.
where's that red flag guy?
Yeah.
So there have been people who have been burned. So there needs to be some transparency there.
Yes.
I will say
100%.
you need to make sure if you have somebody running ads, they understand running ads for at a reseller position is different than the ad strategy that you would run for a private label. So you can't just, follow a private label person and implement those things because you won't have the margins to run them that way. You're going to have to run a very, very tight tacos by product where you're really looking at variations and controlling the variations across, like if you're going to advertise something, you really need to control all of the variations for the buy box for all those variations.
Yeah, sometimes that is true. Sometimes it's not. We've got some suppliers that you're 100% correct, Robin. Mostly the ones that don't want to do an advertising share, but the ones where we have an advertising share, we run the PPC much more like a private label brand. Because typically too, we're getting a discount on the cost of the product. So the margins are much higher. The brand is kicking in ad dollars to be able to run it more like a private label as well.
And there's always a use case for everything, right? I think it depends on the product and the margin and the category too. Like grocery, there's just a tighter margin than there is like if you had like we have a product that is coming onboarding with us. It's got a $2,000 product. So there's a lot of room, even if they were using a reseller there, to run ads.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, there's probably not going to be much margin if you're selling, $3 dice or something.
Yeah.
Like we
Yeah,
talked about
price
last
point
week.
plays a big factor as well.
Yep.
Yes, for sure. For sure. So yeah, I mean, you got to weigh all those things. If you're a reseller, or if you're a brand looking at resellers or going direct, personally, I like the idea of using a brand partnership or an agency if you have no experience on Amazon and you don't really want to have experience on Amazon. But if if you want to really get into the nitty gritty, hire a team, figure out ads, figure out graphics and everything else, then that's the kind of brand that wants to dive in and do it direct.
I think that's a
All
great
right.
point.